Okay, so I guess we'll get going. Is that the consensus? I know, Mona, you're... Okay, so really what I want to do today is to just work my way through the email. It's pretty loaded. There's a lot of content, a lot of issues and concerns raised. And I'm going to go through it pretty much line by line so that I don't leave anything out and I make sure to address everything. Aha.
Bonnie's just coming.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know where she went. I admitted her.
Oh, here she is. Okay. Hi, Bonnie. Welcome. You're muted and we can't see you very well. Ah, getting better. You're muted though. Okay, you're muted, Bonnie. You're muted.
All right, accomplished.
Perfect.
Okay.
We had just
Sorry,
did,
I had a dead computer here and I didn't know why it was so dead.
anyway, I was
Okay.
just saying, I'm going to work my way through the email really line by line, so I don't leave anything out. It's loaded with, questions and concerns, issues, so I'll make my way through it. There are a couple points for which I need some clarification. I didn't really understand the question being asked, so I'll, open it, address you guys at that point. But beyond that, I'd like to try to run through the whole thing before we open it up to general questions and concerns at the end. As I might have, for those of you, I think everybody here was at the meeting 3 weeks ago. I'm not very good with multitasking. I can't see or manage the chat at the same time. So I'd rather that we just ask questions at the end. But if there's something you want to put in the chat, put it there and hopefully we'll look
I
at it.
can take care of it. Yeah.
Okay, because I won't be able to do this and do that.
I will take care of it.
So that would be fantastic. Okay, so before I begin this detailed run through, I must express to everyone that I found this email disheartening. And that's really the most understated euphemism I can come up with. I found it accusatory. I found it demanding. I found it at times very confrontational and antagonistic. I shared it with my executive because, of course, it was so addressed to me. It was also to our committee, and it had to do with activities of the committee. And everybody was similarly troubled by this. Now, I have to say that in addition to being upset, I was actually really surprised. I was pretty stunned. And this is because really since the beginning, I have tried to always reach out in a respectful, friendly manner. And I've always tried to communicate an openness and a willingness to engage. And although it's true, not all people, not everyone has taken me up and have engaged, many of you, ironically, on this committee have engaged with me. And I actually understood that we were beginning to build amicable, collaborative, productive rapport. And that's my intentional goal, because not only is it a really nice way to function, it's also a really effective way to function. And that's why it was so surprising to be kind of ambushed by an email in which I found both the content and the tone quite hostile. Now, I want to make clear that I have no problem with the premise of this meeting. I know all of you were at the meeting that we had a couple of weeks ago. I thought I had actually addressed many of these issues at that meeting, but if the communication was poor, that is entirely on me. That's part of my job in general, and that certainly was the entirety of my job at that meeting. Alternately, if you found that you just wanted a reiteration of some of these points, if you wanted, additional information, we are happy to provide it. In fact, I welcome the opportunity, and I hope and I want people to feel comfortable making these kinds of requests. But I would have expected that it would have been done in a way, as I believe or hope that I've been trying to do, that builds bridges, that builds partnerships, because that's how we view every single person involved with patient advocacy and patient rights. You are our partners and we are yours. Anyway, I had to communicate that before I got started. So I'm going to run through the letter. Like I said, there's going to be a few moments where I have some openings and some questions for you, but I'll try to just get through it, especially since Mona's a bit tight. So it starts, hello, Ingrid. We, the RVH Patients Committee, would like to meet with you via Zoom, etc. Find some time. So now I have to say, and all of us on the executive had the same response when we saw the RVH Patients Committee term, which we saw repeatedly throughout the email, because I felt like we had spent a fair bit of time at the last meeting talking about terminology and how we were obliged to abide by the Act. MUHC, being a single institution, has only a single users committee, and we asked that other committees find a name that did not involve either users committee or patients committee, because users and patients are used interchangeably. Family advisory forum, that was not an issue for it, but for most of the other committees, it did involve changing the name. So I was, a little troubled by the fact that the name was still there. Maybe you just haven't decided on anything, which is fine, let us know. But if you have decided and you're intentionally putting it there, we're troubled. But I see some heads nodding and shaking, so I guess you just haven't gotten there. So that's fine. Had I seen just, the RVH committee, I would have figured that was the case. I was concerned that this was a rename, but I'm very happy to clarify it. The other thing that I want to say, and I want to clarify clearly before I go further, is that when I'm going to be frequently saying you throughout this whole thing. And although Harvey, I know you were the letter writer, and although this may well represent your views, I know that it does not represent your views alone. And when I say you, please know that I am not saying you, Harvey, Michelle, I'm saying you, your RVH committee. I know it's tough to be the one, to be the stand-up guy who actually, writes that email or writes that letter. And, I applaud you for doing it. And I don't want to in any way make you feel attacked. So just please know when I say you, I do mean actually the entire committee. Okay, so here's a synopsis of our concerns. Our main goal is to always put the patients first in our volunteer work. It's in this spirit that the RVH places its patients' lives and impacts head on. Now, this isn't the only time that the email makes a similar comment. And, the implication, the suggestion that I felt, that Deborah felt, and that, the rest of the members of the executive felt, is that the UC, the Users Committee, as an entity, does not put the patients first. And needless to say, we all take issue with this for many, many reasons. And let me give you a little bit of background, tell you a little bit more about myself. I know I got into this a bit at that meeting, but I didn't know if there would be someone here who was not at the meeting. But professionally, I worked for 20 years in an underserviced community. This was a community that was 1,300 kilometers away from our families. When we first went there, we had an 8-month-old, and we went on and had several more kids. And we spent the entirety of our young family life very, very far from our own families who were in Montreal. So it was a bit of a sacrifice. Every night for 20 years that we slept in the community, and we lived there permanently for 5 years, we were on call. We were woken up virtually every single night. We were also responsible for accompanying patients on medevacs. And we had one medevac when my second son was 6 weeks old. That was a medical problem that I was a little bit more comfortable dealing with than my husband. And even though I had not started back at work with the 6-week-old, the decision was made for me to accompany this patient. Now, at that time, I left a 6-week-old who was exclusively breastfed. I knew I would not be back in the community for minimum 24 hours. We had never given him a bottle. We did not know if he'd accept it, how it would work, but this was the thing that was in the best interest of the patient. And there was no question that I was going to go. And I'm just telling you the story, which is, but one of a myriad of stories, to illustrate that we worked where we did and we lived where we did for the benefit of this particular community and for this group of patients. Then I became ill. I could no longer travel or work or be in a remote community. So fast forward to now, and here I am on this committee. So for the past 5 months, I've done really little else than continue to work for the benefit of patients. This has been, and this will be, the sole motivator that informs all my decisions and all my actions. And not just the ones that I take, but the ones that the committee takes. And this began from the get-go. Our first meeting was organized by the administration to get us together a couple of weeks after the election, the acclamation, and it took place 4 days after I had had major surgery. I had gotten out of the ICU the night before the meeting. I attended that meeting. I engaged in that meeting because we had to get this committee up and running. Similarly, I get some chemotherapy treatments. They have to be received in the ICU at the Montreal Neuro. I have to be in there. I have some complications with them. So usually I'm there for 2 days, sometimes a little bit more. And when I'm there, I warn Deborah and I warn Siobhan, I'm in a MIA for the next, however long it takes. However, when I was there, if I had moments, I pulled out the computer, I pulled out the phone, I responded, I did some work because things had to be done. And if I felt like I could, I was willing to do it. I have regular blood exchange treatments. Now, I'm very immunosuppressed, so I love this forum. I'm really thrilled that we have Zoom and Teams and everything else. I try to avoid all unnecessary inpatient exposures. But when I'm in hospital having these blood exchange treatments, I tell Siobhan in advance. She comes to the unit. I sign whatever I have to sign. We do whatever work we have to do. I don't always feel great during these treatments, but we get it done because we're taking advantage. Now, I'm the first to readily admit that although I have a great deal of experience with open science initiatives at the Neuro, I have very little experience. I am totally new to the field of patient rights and patient advocacy. I'm first to concede that I have an enormous amount that I need to learn, but I recognize this, and I am putting in tremendous effort and tremendous time so that I can do what needs to be done. So I've attended pretty much every meeting, every webinar, every conference, irrespective of the time of day. I've sometimes changed my own or tried to change my own medical appointments to accommodate it. I've listened to recordings, not just of webinars recently that I've missed, but of certain conferences or webinars or presentations that took place years ago. I've reviewed, myriad reports, the act till it's coming out my ears. I've studied multiple iterations of our bylaws, of other bylaws. There have been meetings, multiple meetings for Lachine Hospital, for the palliative care program at the MUHC, to say nothing of all the work for the board, for the vigilance committee, for infection control, all those other things. Also, we've had to get the residence committee at Camille Lefebvre up and running. We've spent some time with that. We've had to onboard new members of our committee, who we've been delighted to welcome, but who need some catching up. And of course, we have ongoing dealings with the complaints commissioner and of course, patients. So, I'm saying this just to reiterate that none of this is for my own benefit, right? None of this does anything to address or help my own, fairly active medical conditions. My efforts on this committee have really been solely for the benefit of our users and for the benefit of the entire MUHC community. Now, that's just a little glimpse into my story and my efforts and my motivations. Deborah has hers. Every other member of our committee has theirs, just as each one of you has yours. How you got here, why you are here, what motivates you. Just like us, we are all pretty much in the same situation with respect to that. So any even insinuation that the users committee or any individual member is here for any reason other than to put patients first is really, really troublesome to us. Okay, I'll just get back to the letter. So prior to the reorganization of the previous users committee, we functioned quite effectively. We had patient issues and barriers we address. Since the election of the 5 elected members from different sites, we have, all caps, no voice. To start, I'm struggling a little bit to accept the claim that everything was working and functioning very effectively. We don't have a lot of details. We don't really want to have a lot of details, but the indisputable fact is that the CUC was dissolved entirely because there was sufficient dysfunction and strife and conflict, and all the activities, even of all the subcommittees, their activities were initially suspended. So I don't really consider this, effective functioning. But what I'm more concerned about is that you accuse our committee, fairly explicitly of silencing you. And, if this is the case, if we, are silencing you to the point where you have no voice, we do need to address it. So I, Deborah, all of us, we want to know in what way are we doing this? What can we do differently?
Harvey, did you have something you wanted to say?
Oh no, well, I guess I take full responsibility of the I didn't realize how it impacted you personally, but please do not take it personally. It's just more that each person has their roles, but it's the structure, how it is structured. This is what we're thinking. The decision making as well. In the utopia, in the a nice world, say pre-COVID, we had our own little committee, and then from arm's length, the Montreal, I mean the MUHC was there, like that was far away, but because we felt like we were an entity, we had like what we did, we were all responsible. We had like mechanisms making sure that we didn't do the wrong decision, right decision. So we knew where we were going without just, it seemed like to me, I know I hate this word, but paternalistic, like you have to ask the bigger person up there for anything. So it's just how the structure is, and where we're not in the equal level. Prior, any decision we had made was not relied on to the bigger, we had to climb up like the structure, but that's why it meant the decision making. And we felt, and I don't know if you will get to the point of, we were an entity. The Royal Victoria Hospital is an entity, but without Big Brother looking up as we were. Anyway, that's my comment.
Okay, thanks. I definitely will get there because you did specify it, so I'm sure address it directly. I was just, I was first of all, I understand that the changes in structure, which of course should have happened 20 years ago, are difficult, and we're for the best reasons. I think we just have to work really collaboratively together. But there are some structural and level differences. The UC, all the other committees are subcommittees of the users committee. So, there are some things, I'll get into them. I just, I was concerned, have we, totally obliterated your voice? I take things literally, mostly because I want to work through things and not leave out comments that, aren't convenient for me to address. So that's why I'm going to, suck it up and address the things, even if they're disturbing to me. But I totally understand your views of wanting to be able to get things done. How we do it and the structure we have to work within, we'll definitely get to. Go ahead, Diane.
I think, I want to say thank you for meeting with us, first of all. And I like to say, from my point, my input, when we had that meeting with you the first time, I felt I left there in limbo. I had emailed you and I still felt in limbo, meaning I didn't know, do we have a committee? Whatever you want to call it at this stage. I'm going to say committee because that's what we always called ourselves, but I know we have to change the name. Okay. So it was like, do we have a committee? Can we have a committee? Like, how are we functioning? I didn't know at all the concept of how we were functioning. In the past, we functioned kind of like the CUC, but we did it ourselves. We had our funding, we did our projects. If it was a big project, we went to your committee type of thing, and now it just felt like there was nothing to follow. We don't get the complaints. We used to receive the complaints from the RVH. So we knew what was going on, we would handle them, but we don't get that no more. Like, it was kind of like we were there, but no longer there. I don't know if what I'm saying makes sense.
Yeah. No, it definitely does. And I had so much to cover in that meeting. And like I said, any communication, shortfalls are me, absolutely. So hopefully this will help clarify even more. You can keep the committee name, there's no problem. You do have to adjust the first word, and I really had hoped that I was really clear that, with the exception of the name change and, possibly some functional differences, we want every committee. In fact, we want more committees, but there's no problem. Like I said, I'm glad if you reached out to, hey, we're confused, to clarify. It was just hard not to be taken aback, by the tone and some of the content. But anyway, let me go on, because some of the stuff really addresses a lot of Harvey's specific questions. So you mentioned the decision makers are at the MUHC Users Committee. Who are they accountable to? So technically speaking, we are currently, for as long as it lasts, accountable to the ministry. We do submit our annual report to the board of directors, but we're actually completely independent of the board of directors. That being said, they are permitted to intervene under certain extreme circumstances when we're unable to fulfill our mandate because of conduct or dynamics that compromise that ability, as just happened. But generally speaking, we are totally independent from the board. As per Bill 15, which presumably will go through, we are actually going to be accountable to this National Users Committee. And they're an agency, or they're part of this agency of Santé Quebec. So technically, legally speaking, that's it. Practically speaking, we are accountable, in my view, to users of the MUHC, to every single one of them. I am additionally accountable to, and I think everybody would agree, to my own conscience. And that dictates that I work in good faith, productively, to promote the interests of all users, and that all energy is directed towards that end. It's not directed towards, sowing seeds of discontent or cultivating strife among people who, ought to be not only my partners, my colleagues, but, ideally even my friends. So I have no problem dealing with disgruntled users. That's, I think, to begin with, why we're all here. And that disgruntlement actually is the spark, in a way, that inspires change, that alerts us to problems. But I do have difficulty dealing with disgruntlement of fellow advocates, either because There's a refusal to adapt to mandated reforms that we have no choice about, or because there's some other perplexing agenda, whatever. That I find a little bit more challenging. Okay. We would like to have clear and concise directives in our function at our RVH Patients Committee. So initially, I was really perplexed by this because I felt like, the letter sort of toggled between saying we want our autonomy and we want clear and concise directives. And what I'm gathering now is that it's not so much that you're asking for functional, governing directives, you're just asking for information. We want clear information. What are we? Do we exist? What are we allowed to do? So I interpreted this clearly very differently than what you just explained. So it was very, very helpful. And I hope that I can provide some of those, and we will provide more also in the future. So we had functioning subcommittees, for example, accessibility and Indigenous communities. These subcommittees in the past were very effective. They were effective. They are effective. You could have made that list much longer. And I really hope that in our meeting in March, especially after listening to everybody's presentations, I hope that at the very least, I was clear about how impressed I was with the volume and the quality of work that has been done over the years. And I also hope that I was clear that I want to not only encourage more of the same, I want to encourage more of the same committees. So we really do applaud everything you've done and recognize it, absolutely. The letter contrary, it's now the vision of the new MUHC Users Committee to have subcommittees examining these special interest groups. So again, initially, I found it a bit odd and arguably presumptuous, for you to tell us what our vision was, but I'm now reading that more as we're confused. There are a lot of terms being thrown around. What's what? Is that correct, or am I I'm not really well understanding that sentence that our vision?
Yes, you are.
To examine it.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes,
So,
you are, because you did sorry about that. You did alluded to the sub committees. It's like you're shopping for advocates and to be a larger, but not within the RVH. So it wouldn't be us doing it. It'll be part of us there, I guess.
yeah. Well, definitely we have subcommittees. Are there going to be subcommittees of the subcommittees? You might, within your subcommittee, say, we want to adjust the deaf project and we want a certain whatever. Part of it is terminology. And look, we've been struggling with this too. We're all new at it. Reading through the bylaws, it's probably the worst thing to do. There is every term thrown out, subcommittee, special interest group, a million different things. So we are trying to come to an agreement in terms of the notion, the idea, the structure that we want to see, and then finding the correct terminology. So we're, I think, in the same boat with respect to the confusion about all the terminology. And again, I'll get to the structure and the organogram in a second when I get to that part of the letter. Okay, we need and require clear guidelines and directives from the Users Committee to undertake these initiatives at our site. Again, I'll leave that out. That's same as we mentioned before. So the current structure as we see it, it's a challenge as it's centralized. What it means is that the local hospitals, RVH Lachine, the general, the neuro, the chest, don't have the autonomy it used to have. Now, that is unfortunately correct. Individual facilities do not have the autonomy that they used to have prior to 97. So just a quick review of the history, which I had to inform myself of. In 1997, all the individual institutions that you mentioned were merged into a single institution under the law. That's the current MUHC. Then in 2006, the Act dictated that each institution, remember, the MUHC now is a single institution, was to have a single users committee. Neither I nor my committee was responsible for the merger. Neither I or my committee obviously had a hand in developing the act. However, we are bound by it, okay? And we're going to conform. So this is really not a negotiable point. So, that's all I can say. This is the way this is structured, and we're stuck with it. We want to make a way and find a path forward to be as effective as possible within that construct. Now, remember also when the merger happened, everything merged, right? Every administrative department, every clinical department. So, whereas previously there was a surgical chief of surgery at each of those institutions, at each of those facilities, now there is a single chief of surgery for the entire MUHC. This happened there were many director of professional services. Now there is a single director of professional services. There were many boards of directors. Now there's a single board of directors. Now, there's no question the merger caused tremendous upheaval and realignment for everyone in the healthcare network. Nobody appreciated it, at least initially. But nevertheless, people have, for the past 25 years, they haven't spent the time, complaining or quitting or sabotaging. They pulled up their socks and they got on with the work of clinical care to benefit patients. They parked their ego, they did whatever had to be done and accepted their role in the structure, and yet maintained the mission to provide good care to our community. Why the patient advocates as a group haven't really been able to do this is a bit mystifying. Some of it is just sort of inertia, just kept plodding along. I mean, I don't really understand, but we do have to accept the structure and conform to it in a way that allows us to work productively. All decisions must be cleared by the MUHC, the Users Committee, whereas in the past you only had to forward requests for specific funding. So again, at first I thought this was just sort of an extreme version. What do you mean all decisions? There's so many things you have autonomy about, but I realize now this is really just a question. We are used to doing things that did not require us to ask the Users Committee. Now it seems we do. What does, what doesn't? I hope now that's a better interpretation. Yeah, for that. Okay, what are the current, I'm just looking at time. Okay, so, but just to address this, well, you know what, let me get to the bottom, to the organogram, and then I'll be able to go back. It'll make a little bit more sense. Okay, what are the current operating bylaws? Can you share which bylaws were passed? So this is actually a really good question. The last ratified bylaws were in 2018. Then there was a hastily thrown together set of bylaws in 2022, which was developed really with the point of addressing the pickle that the MUHC found itself in, or that the Users Committee found itself in, dissolved, how to repopulate the committee, not to allow people who were previously on it to be on it again. And so it wasn't really, I mean, first of all, it was done quickly. It didn't reflect a lot of what we feel should be reflected. There were things in it that shouldn't be. There were things not in it that should be, because I think it was really designed to just deal with the current crisis. So we are not going to approve those bylaws. And we've been working, myself, Deborah, and our secretary, who is luckily a lawyer. And so we've been meeting on a weekly basis to redraft the bylaws in a way that reflects exactly how we want things to function going forward. We've gotten our first draft done. We are hoping to be able to present it, because we have to give our committee members a good amount of time to pick through it. So we're hoping to give it to them within the next maybe 2 weeks or so, and then be able to approve it at our meeting in May, and hopefully have it ratified at the AGM, which we're considering holding before the summer. The moment it's approved by our committee, it is open information. It has to be shared with every user, because users are the one who ultimately vote upon it and ratify it at the general assembly. So the moment our committee has approved it, we will absolutely provide it for you. The only reason it hasn't been provided is because we are in limbo and it's a work in process. Okay, we were an entity on ourselves, entity on itself, as we felt we could achieve our goals and objectives to improve patient outcomes and conditions. So we certainly support the latter, right? The improvement in patient outcomes and conditions is our mission. That's it. With respect to the first part, that you're an entity unto yourself, unfortunately, it's no longer the case, and nor has it been technically since the reform in 2006. But we do need to work collaboratively, and this means at all levels, within each individual committee and between committees. But we have to do it while still respecting the structure that's dictated by the Act. In the past, our RVH committee met from September to May and submitted our activity reports and financial reports to the users committee. What's the situation moving forward? Yeah, so the situation is exactly the same. All subcommittees will be required to submit a report of activities to us. We include these in our own annual report that gets submitted, well, for now to the board, probably very shortly to this National Users Committee. But this is not the first time that we should be hearing about your activities and your projects, right? These things need to be brought to us in real time and on an ongoing basis. And I think this speaks to the questions you have: who makes the decisions, who does, who does what? So the next, and I'm going to get to that in a second. So the current organogram needs to be clear and concise. Organizational structure must be defined without any ambiguity. Now I recognize why you asked that question and the confusion and the ambiguity that existed. Essentially, it's pretty straightforward. There will be the National Users Committee. Beneath that, there will be some 30-odd users committees, one per each institution. What those users committees, how they plan to function, all other 30, I don't know, and it's not my business. We will function by establishing as many subcommittees as possible to help us fulfill our mandate. So that's basically the structure. That means that, yes, you do not have, you don't work autonomously. You do, in a sense, answer to this. We are useless without you. We're not on the ground at the RVH. We are not someone using, say, mental health services. I would like to see a committee formed for that. So we need you to bring your concerns, your issues, your projects forward. They do have to be under the structure brought forward to us. But keep in mind, we share the same mission. We are aiming for the same thing. If you identify a need within the building of the Royal Victoria Hospital, within whatever, and it's a legitimate concern and it has merit, we will never fail to encourage and support, taking this on. So it doesn't, so things do change and they don't change. We need you and we want you and we hope that you will identify specific issues. However, you are required to let us know what's going on, certainly, and not just for funding, but also to tackle whatever it is. If someone comes to you saying, and I know you brought this up, Diane, it's true, the complaints only go to the Central Users Committee. That is like the old Central Users Committee, now our Users Committee. And it's interesting that you say you liked to deal with them or like to see them because they gave you a little bit of insight into, I guess, what was going on. The way it is structured now, it does come to us, but maybe we can figure out some system. Certainly, if there's anything in there that requires or that inspires a project, we go right back to you. Now, my question is, I don't know how much detail you want, if we should share all things that, I mean, so far, really, they're not really site specific, our the complaints that we get. I mean, there's so many and there's so many issues, but I don't know if you're interested or if I mean, we'd have to think about it and discuss it further. Would you want to see the complaints that have to do with the RVH, or only those that, might inspire a project?
In the past, Schwan used to send it to the executives. The complaints that came through, no matter what it was, like something that happened in the ER, it only pertained to the RVH, something ER, housekeeping, whatever it was, we were aware of what was going on. And we used to meet with the ombudsman also, and get feedback from them. And sometimes people will come to you directly because you're like, oh yeah, you're on the committee. Not that they would do a complaint, but they would voice a complaint because, as you know, people are scared to file complaints.
Yes, I do.
So that's something that we used to handle also. Like if somebody came and said, Diane, the bathroom on the 6th floor, I couldn't get in with my wheelchair. So right away, I'm going to go take myself up to the 6th floor, or tell Mona, go check out the 6th floor, because we're wheelchair users, or even Lisa, because of the fact that we would get a better understanding than what anybody walking would get a better understanding of. And be able to say, yeah, okay, you know what, we're going to bring it up to our functional committee. I think that's what we renamed it. And we were dealing with people from technical services, and we had that direct contact. So we received, like, when everything came through to the RVH, we were aware of what it was. It went to the 2 chairs. So we were aware of what it was. But now we don't know nothing at all.
Right. Well, that's super important for us to hear, because if that is something that you find useful and it's Shawan doing it, we keep a complaints log, we have the information. It's not at all a problem to do that. I think where things probably do have to change a little bit is if you go and you explore it and you come to some consensus of what needs to be done. I guess, through the structure, you kind of need to come back to us, and we need to kind of work together and go, you can't really, I guess, autonomously go to, I don't know, managers or directors or, PDGs or anything like that. And I think this is going to be brought, I think this will be forced a little bit more, because, the administration, I think, has also been very frustrated by the fact that we're functioning as though we did, prior to 2006. And, they've been trying to get the word out amongst themselves to say, hey, if you have, some issue, speak to the users committee, which was the central one. And if someone from someone else goes see whatever, make sure, it needs to go through the users committee. So in that sense, I guess, we are changing the degree of autonomy in that respect and creating another step, that you do have to come through us, because we may have the only voice to go to the administration, but it's not me or our committee that is, constraining you. It's the structure of the beast. But certainly in terms of complaints, I had no idea you wanted them. I'm so glad. And these are exactly the specifics that we need to know. What can we do that's going to help you do your job? And hopefully we can, take care of all of them. But there are some things with the structure that may have to be adapted a bit. I have to be honest with that too.
Now, my question to you is, like, for the accessibility committee that we had, I'll call it accessibility just for now, like like I said, the bathroom, we used to meet with Justin and Francine, and they were the technical team for the MUHC. And, we went to the whole hospital with them, like the whole Glen site, and we looked at everything, and they took notes, and things were fixed. Will we still have that contact, or do we lose that contact now?
Yeah. So first of all, I saw that report. I looked through it. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I have some mobility problems, so I particularly appreciate it. And I also appreciate how, because this has developed recently, when you don't have mobility problems, you don't see these things and you don't notice these things. So the report was phenomenal. I think we have to find a balance of something that makes sense, that is not extra bureaucracy. It doesn't, to be honest, make sense. But again, I don't want to speak for the entire committee, and we have to discuss it and we have to sort it out. And as we go, things may change. But to me, it makes sense that yes, you go to whomever it is, especially if you have an established relationship with them, that you go to them, you identify yourself. We are the RVH Patient Advocacy Committee. We are a subcommittee of the Users Committee, whatever it is, and you get some things done. We do not want to put up obstacles at all. So, I wish I could tell you, yes, go do everything, or no, do nothing. I suspect there's going to be a balance that we're going to have to find, and we'll just have to deal with as things come up one at a time. Reach out to me, call me, email me, hi, blah blah blah, can I speak to, so not in a permission way, but in a, look, we're establishing a new little ecosystem, we need to communicate both ways. I just want to get, I totally forgot in terms of, I left out when the point of, all the reports, but also in the past we met from such and such to such and such. I want to just reiterate, and I think I talked about it at the meeting, but I don't remember, that you can hold as many meetings or as few meetings as you like. You can do them whenever you like. You can draft your own bylaws. You can not draft your own bylaws. You can elect an executive. You can choose not to elect an executive. So the nitty-gritty of the functioning of every individual committee is entirely up to you. So in that respect, you have full autonomy. We are not going to say you must function in this way and meet on Monday mornings only and do it. That's not what we're here for to do. So, there's still, just even in terms of the functioning of the committee, really, there's a lot of latitude, and we do not want to enter into it. It's none of our business. It's not, the way, what works for you, the way you function best. And we want to make sure that you're able to do that.
Okay, thank you.
The end, we were trained by Facilitator Falk from the RPCU. What we learned is to focus our energies. I'm going to leave that out. I think we're all on board. The communication strategy hasn't been clear. So I guess, it's more that there are just so many points that weren't clear. I guess it's not that communication strategy, how we're going to do it, but that, we still had a lot to clarify. So signed, respectfully, Harvey. Initially, reading this, I thought there's not a lot of respect in this email and not a lot to, build collaborative relationships. And I was really very troubled by it. And I'm really glad we had this meeting because, and this is the problem with all written communication, of course, is that, you read tone into it, you read it very literally, and you can get into a pickle. So, maybe we should, learn from this, that when there are issues or you have questions or whatever, I'm happy if I can possibly make it, to come and in person address them rather, than putting things down on paper. And look, I do it all the time. I wrote a letter to the committees, I write emails, but I guess it sometimes comes across in a manner that, really wasn't intended. So that's it. I guess my last comment, which I sort of wanted to make, was that, I think it's really important to, in that vein, to remember that we need to always be civil and courteous and harmonious and collegial, because, we're all in it as volunteers. And much as the main thing that we want to do is achieve a great deal of good for our users, for all of our patients, we also hope, or at least I hope, that the process is, at the very least pleasant and ideally actually enjoyable. And for me, that really hinges on the quality of the relationships that I established. 5 months ago, I didn't know Deborah. I had never heard of Deborah. And now I am lucky enough to be developing a very dear friendship with her. She's someone who is brilliant, she's kind, she's funny, She has really great insight and great judgment. And I'm saying all of this not just to sing her praises, though I'm happy to do so at every opportunity, but also because our relationship sparks joy. And that's great. But more importantly, it makes us better at what we do. It motivates, it inspires, and ultimately it allows us to work more effectively for the benefit of all our patients. So I really hope that moving forward, we can work and aspire to establish the same kinds of relationships. I think they help prevent miscommunications, and I think ultimately they benefit everyone.
I think
I
if
have
I
one
can just interject, I just want to let you know that we so value your work. I mean, without your work, we would not know of so many issues that need to be addressed. So all of these subcommittees or site committees are our ears on the ground, and they are so essential to fostering change. So we want you to know that we value your work incredibly, and we want to continue to work together collaboratively. So it's not that you're undervalued or that we are trying to take over your work. That's not our intent at all. So we really want you to know that. Anybody have any questions?
I have one quick question, sorry. I'd like to know,
Yeah.
do we have, like, because we weren't functioning, we don't have an annual report to submit to you, correct?
Oh, you mean you don't have to submit one?
Yes, for
Yeah,
for this year, because we weren't doing anything,
Right.
basically.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to address that, Deborah.
I think everybody will be in the same board because activities were curtailed in, what was it, May, I think? May or June. So nobody really had much activity after that. So I guess we're going to have to carefully decide what's going to go into our report. If we want to report on our activities from March to May, I don't know, but we can definitely let you know.
Yeah, but I think it's reasonable. Look, our report, we only were acclaimed in November. We only met for the first time at the end of November. Then there were the holidays. We are in the learning phase. So, I mean, we've had millions of meetings with different things and we're tackling a lot of issues, but, we don't have any, hard results. So I think it is perfectly fair to, we still are going to have to submit an annual report, perfectly fair to tell that story. We were, we've been, elected since this date. These are the things we're working at. This is what we hope to do, goals. These are the people on the committee. It's helpful to submit an annual report, even just to say, these are our active committee members. Like there is a template and it's, I think it will really help guide. But yes, if you have, we were suspended from, continuing with our activities in May, whatever, and we are just getting going again. These are our goals. These are whatever. And it could be 2 lines. It doesn't matter. That reflects the reality. It's unfortunate reality. It is the reality. And we just need to be honest and write, the annual report is, yes, you suspended our activities. We did nothing this year. If that's the case, that's the report. But again, just listing the members and a few other things does have some organized, really provides us with information and is still very valuable. And
I
also, I think it does.
I have to
force
leave.
us.
Thank you.
Okay.
All
Thanks
right.
so much, Mona. Yeah. So I think also it does kind of force us to evaluate and maybe make a list of priorities and goals for the future. So maybe it has some value in that.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else have any questions?
Harvey, you're on
You're
mute.
muted.
Yeah.
I can.
Okay, sorry.
Uh,
Yeah,
uh,
the word of collaborative, that relationship
I'm sorry,
building,
you're going.
it's like the federal government and the provincial.
Sorry, Harvey, can you repeat it?
can't-
You're going in and out.
Oh,
I'm losing you also.
oh, okay, maybe. Okay, so the word collaborative or collaboration, and that relationship has to be developed, but it's also, it's just like the provincial and the federal relationship. For example, if the RVH committee wants to do an activity such as setting up a booth, say in September, advising patients that they have rights, their little information. So what are we going to do looking forward to? Well, we have to ask the MUHC user committee to get their okay, or is it just we just plant ourselves there in the once a month in September, for example? So that autonomy, who decides? Okay, well, let's go up and get our banner, let's get our chairs, and or do we have to ask the large? That's an example.
Yeah, that's a good example.
Collaboration.
Yeah, I think every example is a little bit different. So for me, for that, you need to sort of say, hi, this is something that we used to do. We'd like to start doing it on a monthly basis. Are you okay with that? And I would say, yes, that's a great idea. I'm so glad that COVID has subsided enough to allow you to do it. And that would be the extent of it. You don't have the right to fix this.
And we might be able to send people your way, given that we know about it. So there's an advantage to letting us know what you plan to do because we want to support you.
Right. If this was something outside, I would love to be there. So exactly. I think it's helpful. And I don't think any of these letting us know, asking us whatever are time consuming. You don't have to present, write a presentation, come to a meeting, do whatever. You just have to communicate.
Yeah, I mean, we could get it up on the plasma screens to help support you. You have to look at us as being a resource for you as well. But these
I agree.
activities are wonderful activities, and we want you to engage in these activities. So you're not really asking us permission. You're just letting us know, and then we will support you to the best of our ability. But no, we want you to do these things. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I hope that we can come in handy if you ever face some obstacle or getting a little pushback or whatever from someone, that, yes, I hope that we can be a help in that respect as well. Sorry, I think Jean, you were first and then Diane again.
Where was I going? Just to the point of this week, I understand from that you and Siobhan, Ingrid, you and Siobhan had a chance to talk about the pamphlets, the Indigenous welcoming pamphlets, the patients' rights pamphlets. And there's only one box left and we need to order more. And Siobhan is going to recheck who the printer was. And so in terms of the cost, I guess it's really just the routine. How would this, we probably would do better if we knew a little bit about how things might work. For example, and this is maybe a good example, like so I have no idea in my head, and I guess I could go back to emails about the cost, and I'm not sure how many boxes, Bonnie, we want to order, or Siobhan wants to order. And actually the question does come, should we move this out of our jurisdiction into the UC jurisdiction, given that it is a completely, we want to let people know that it's all of the MUHC that welcomes Indigenous patients, and everybody coming into any of our sites has the right to get in touch with the office, with Siobhan, and ask for support or ask to make a complaint. So Could you speak to that? Is that?
Sure. Yeah. So how this came up is I was actually in the office.
Yeah, perfect.
Take a look. I was like, how many boxes of these do we have? I'm like, that's not enough. I'm still trying to connect with the Uluvik gang. I'm trying to connect with Cree Patient Services. And I was like, we are down to one box. We need to, order more. Let's order more. And initially it was just, she wanted to just reach out to inform you guys. Again, this is bi-directional
That's
communication.
good.
Just to say, hey, just to let you know, we're, down to one box. Ingrid wasn't, comfortable with that. And we're going to order more. But then she did have a question of, do you remember where or something? She found it all. It's not a problem. But you're right. This was a courtesy call, essentially. This was to let you know that, hey, we're not, dropping the ball on this. The same way if you were concerned we were dropping the ball on us, you should reach out to us. But the headache is ours, for sure. The printing, the cost, everything else, we take care of. There's no problem. But
Okay.
it was courteous because this is your baby to let you know.
And the other part of the baby is some distribution where we haven't really met. Harvey made an incredible list. Siobhan made an incredible list. We think most of these things have been addressed. In other words, people have received a first group or first bunch of brochures. But actually, Harvey, Bonnie, we haven't looked at these lists with Siobhan, and we would need to meet with Siobhan because she's the person that's sending them out. It's time. We're now before the summer to try and tidy this bit up, the distribution, because it'll be an ongoing thing. The thing about brochures is they're taken.
Happily.
Yeah,
Bonnie,
but may I say, I mean, it's Siobhan sees that the number of brochures go down and we need more. So, I mean, she could take that step, I mean, and check it out maybe with the management or with, I mean, our leaders here.
they
I
have.
don't think we have to keep holding on to it. That's
No,
what I'm saying.
We see the big boxes, but all the distribution, because I've seen her incredible list and where they went and she's
Yeah.
amended it. She doesn't know, are those gone? Do they need more? Does, Uluvik, does
Right.
prepaid service need more? So it does have to be followed up, and it would be great if you remain involved and
Okay.
on the pulse with that and meet with her and see who needs it. I just want to point out that, of course, the information and the brochures is available in electronic form
It
on
is.
websites. And there is a move, and I live with crazy environmental kids and a husband and whatever, to get away from paper to some extent. So I think we should also be kind of endorsing the electronic version, but I totally recognize, the paper hardcore and the graphics, there's room for both, but let's not forget that even if we don't have the paper ones, we do still have the electronic link to it.
And
Okay,
just to remind you that for Indigenous people, the electronic is probably not the first. So
Doesn't work.
we really need to have paper at sites where they are going to see them. In other words, Shisasabe meant, the place where you worked, those places need to have something that if people are coming down to Uluvik and to the MUHC, and the guy from Uluvik, Harvey, said that 95% of the patients from the north that come to stay at Uluvik are coming to the MUHC. So it's not as if we're putting them in the brochures in areas where they're going to Maisonneuve Rosemount,
We're going to our connections.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah,
that-
there are certain corridors of care, and for our Cree region, actually, for many things, they go to Val d'Or, Rouen, or Amos. But if they do come to Montreal, they're coming to the Glen or the
That's
general, to the MUHC.
Right.
So it's worth it. And you're right, not everybody has access to a computer. There is digital literacy issues, but actually for the Crees, which is the only community that I'm aware of, actually the digital literacy rate is extremely high, and people do have access. And it's interesting because when I first saw the brochure, I thought, wow, it's fantastic that it uses Cree syllabics, but actually it's just a tiny, tiny proportion of the community who reads Cree syllabics. However, it's a welcoming site. So even if you read the English, having the Cree syllabics there.
Yeah, it's just showing that we're
Right.
aware.
Right. But
could
you're
I also
absolutely
say
right. The digital thing is an issue.
it's similar for the Mohawks. The number that read Cree syllabics is not probably very high, and the number that read French and English is probably pretty high. But I don't have facts on that. So anyway, there's nothing, I guess the important thing is, since we're reprinting, is that there's nothing we have been told by the many people who have taken a look at these that there's something we have to change. And that's vital, because if there was something that needed to be changed, then that has a few other steps in it.
Yeah.
But
Right. Yeah. And I definitely, when I'm talking about digital things and this, I was thinking actually more of the other pamphlets for the other, just in general, kind of trying to steer away from paper and going digital. So it actually wasn't as specifically targeted for this particular context. Okay, Diane. Oh, sorry. Is this the same topic, Bonnie, or can we let poor Diane has been waiting?
Yeah, Diane, sure, go ahead, Diane.
Yeah.
No, if you're not finished, it's okay. I don't mind. I just
Oh.
wanted to say, is it possible, because we've done it for LMRC,
Mhm.
to make ASL video of the 12 rights and have it shared? Because we've done it for our site. They did it in French and they did it in English. And we just finished doing the one in English because they
So
had the first one done in French.
You're talking about ESL and Quebec Sign Language? That you're talking about
Yeah,
those?
ASL
Yes.
and LSQ.
Right, and LSQ. Okay. So are they done?
They're done. They're done.
Where
Okay.
are they?
So I don't know why the MUHC doesn't have it.
That's fantastic. I mean, that needs to be, there needs to be a link to that on our site. That's interesting. And it was finished when, and was it done through
We
the?
just finished up maybe maximum 2 months ago.
Okay, well,
and-
I'm meeting with the McDougals this afternoon. Are they involved in that or not?
No, we did it ourselves as the committee, and we hired an ASL interpreter to do
Okay.
the rights with the writing to come up,
Right.
could I just ask, Diane, who is we hired
The users committee,
of what?
Lethbridge, Leighton, Mackay Rehabilitation Center.
So Lethbridge, Leighton, Mackay Rehabilitation Center initiated this wonderful initiative and paid for it.
Yes.
And the question is, how can we put some of, I think
Are they giving it to us?
Yeah, we'd have to figure out copyright issues and intellectual property.
Yeah, yeah.
and
Exactly.
does it fit?
The point is it exists, which is phenomenal. And
It is phenomenal. Yeah.
Because, Lethbridge, Mackay, the MAB is where the deaf community is, right?
Yeah.
And the hard of hearing go there for their devices, hearing tests, like that's where our community is. After you have your cochlear implant, after they program, you're going back to the MAB to continuing your rehab. So that's why we're really like, this has to be done, because we all know ASL is a problem, especially in Quebec. It's not really used because they try to teach you oral, as Bonnie knows, more than the ASL. So they really
Yeah,
tried to,
but there's a lot of SLQ too, yeah.
yeah, and SLQ, you know, the ASL is like, it's the English, so let's be real.
Question, how much overlap is there between ASL and LSQ?
I don't really know, but I do know there's signs of LSQ that we use ASL. I
Yeah.
don't know how much there is. Maybe
Mm.
the McDougals could tell you more,
Mhm.
because when I do my course, it says there's this done in English and this in ASL and this is in LSQ, and you see similar signs.
Mm. You do see similar, okay, I mean, I
Yeah.
would hope
Yeah,
that
some are sick.
overlap because,
Yeah, yeah.
okay,
But I just wanted to have mentioned that, so.
yeah, that's great. Just along, once we're sort of a total segue, but of course, with this new reform, none of those facilities will have users committees. I don't know if people are.
You know what? I know that we're sending a letter, we're
Okay.
preparing for a fight, because especially for LMRC, we're scared because we have so many different disabilities at this one establishment. And we're the voices on the ground. And if the way that you're gonna set it up, you're gonna lose that. You know, you have Miriam Home. I don't know if you know what that is,
I
you
do.
know.
Yeah.
It's a scary situation, but we're in the process of drawing up a letter, getting ready to send it out. We're even thinking of like the media, like we're not accepting Bill 15 quietly, let's put it that way.
Okay. Yeah, so just to loop everyone else in, so with Bill, currently there are, I forget how many hundreds of users committees with, you know, each, many different facilities of users committees. And under this bill, there will only be a users committee per institution or CUS or CIS, or so it is cutting out some enormous number of users committees. The MUHC is kind of uniquely placed, and the nature of it being one institution, which maybe is causing grief for all of us, but actually protects us very well in the sense that very little actually changes for us. But for all these other facilities, they're going to lose that voice, and it's a major issue.
And maybe if we have a way of supporting the other groups, we should do that.
I think it's so important because I'm really scared for our institutions. You know, the physical disabilities with Constance Lethbridge, the Mackay, the Blind Association, like the blind is there, like we're such a unique facility. And if we lose that, we're losing everything for, and to have to go through the complaints commissioner, because you're going to remove everybody at this stage, the way that they're looking at these complaints are going to take longer to be handled, because I don't think they're going to be hiring so many more new people.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's going to be longer to handle a complaint. You might even get less people wanting to do a complaint than what you already have, because they're going to feel left out.
Yeah.
What happens to our deaf community that have to depend, they use ASL, and they're going to have to try to do a complaint? How is it going to function for them? Because now at the MAB, if a deaf person comes in to do a complaint, we have an ASL person. At the time, we're looking for a new resource, but it's on hold. But she was an ASL interpreter. So we had that connection there. It's really scary.
It is. And I'm sorry to have brought it up, but it's just, you know, you brought up Lethbridge, and I just,
Yeah.
And it's a big
Yeah.
problem.
And we already have the problem with pediatrics going into the adult system, that transitioning, there's already a huge problem.
Yeah.
And this is going to make it even worse.
Yeah, that's a huge problem across pediatrics for any condition.
Exactly.
Huge
Exactly.
problem, but okay.
Exactly.
Anyway, if you can poke around and ask if we could, if they're willing to give us, if there's some copyright, if there's some issue with us posting a link to those videos or getting those videos, that would be amazing.
Okay, great. I'll look into it and I'll get back to you.
Sure, that's great.
Okay, thank you.
In general, you know, let's do this more often. Even if it's not as a group, if it's one-on-one or pick up a foot, whatever. I think it often is much more efficient, and there's much less misreading of intentions and everything else than, in written form. So.
Yeah, I just want to say that, I mean, what I'm feeling here is that what we used to do, just present something to the CUC. But now it looks like if I have an issue or whatever I want, I could just call somebody up on your committee. So in other words, any of us could deal and present something to you or to your team.
Absolutely. My phone is open. I sleep very little.
No,
So
this is a way we get it closer together rather than going to one person and then going to another person. You were out of it.
No, I think, look, Deborah and I work as co-chairs, even though she doesn't want the title, but
Okay.
Pick up the phone, reach out. We'll talk to us. If it's something that needs to be, run through at the executive level or at the committee level, that's on us. We'll make that judgment.
Yeah.
And consider that, this is in flux, right? We're just getting going. There may be things that we think we can okay just like that. Go ahead, Bonnie, and later realize, well, no, we should have gone through this channel, or the contrary.
A recommendation.
Right. I think we just have to be flexible, that especially since, we just have to be flexible to changing tack. But absolutely reach out. Don't hesitate. I don't know what the previous system was, or if you had to either have
Well, it went through the ones who were the person who was our person on the CUC.
Right. Okay.
Which
Right.
left everybody else out.
So that, in a way, you've lost. I mean, we had to give up that in our attempt to try to be nonpartisan and not end up in the same dissolved pickle. But yes, you missed that one person. But then maybe that was problematic, and that it never went from that one person to the rest of you. I don't know.
We don't know. We really don't know.
We don't want to go there. Especially if it mostly was other groups that had the biggest problem. I think one of the things I'd like to raise briefly is looking at the numbers that we are. There are 4 of us that have from the RVH Advisory Committee. You notice I put the word in there.
Whatever you like. Thank you.
If we like, I don't know, but there are 4 of us here. Rosalind came on, and as in a previous meeting, she said she didn't take part really. She probably heard. And Mona is active. But in terms of other committees, I am particularly interested in one that involves the supporting the Indigenous patients, and it doesn't have to be just RVH. Obviously it isn't, because a lot of our patients go to the MGH, and I'm sure a number go to the neuro as well, and the children's. So in terms of, sorry, we have a little work going on in the place upstairs. I may have to move. Let me try. So I'm just not sure how we're going to do this, because do we stay on an RVH committee, or do we and start up another committee? Harvey being an important part of an Indigenous committee, if he's willing. I'm not just sure how we're going to manage, or if we drop out. If I were to drop out of the RVH advisory group, that would leave even fewer people, because we've lost a number, and so I guess what I'm saying is we need some more patient advocates to join these groups, and perhaps I don't know if it goes, if the same thing goes with other sites, but perhaps there needs to be a bit of marketing around bringing in new people. Bonnie, what are you thinking?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, because right now we're all from the RVH. Right? I mean, then you have people that come from the neuro and general and children's. So we don't know. I mean, we could say this is, we know what we're going to do with the CUC, but do they know what to do? You know, there's like a whole group of, you know, that was dealing in the children's hospital. Another group was in the neuro and the general.
Are you
So
talking?
what are they doing?
Are you talking about with respect to sort of a committee for Indigenous rights, or are you talking about just in general?
In general, and everybody.
In general, I'm concerned if if you obviously had, all these questions and I wasn't clear and didn't get to enough in the meeting. Yeah, I'm hoping that if they have questions or issues, will reach out. Definitely our bylaws, does lay it out a little bit, but that's probably not going to be available.
Yeah, so then does
Yeah.
it mean that that you should have a meeting like similar to this? Because I think it's very important with people from the neuro and people from the other hospitals.
It's quite possible, but I leave it to them to reach out. You did. I have that our initial meeting, communicated what had to be. Otherwise, if they have questions, I hope they reach out. We've had a few questions by email to someone, asking about this or expenses, different things. So I think it's up to each individual community in terms.
But they have to know it. They have to know it too.
Well, it's guess you mean know that they're able to reach out.
Just to reach out to
Was it hard to reach out to the previous CUC?
Well, you had your representative who went to them.
Okay.
That was the problem.
Absolutely.
In terms of the Indigenous community, like if there's an Indigenous rights committee, whatever, which of course I would love to see, you're right. No, it absolutely is not going to cannibalize or come necessarily from only RVH committee members. I think there may be overlap. You may want to sit on, but I mean, it's up to each individual person to decide what committee, what committees, plural, they want to be on. You might be on more than one, you won't, but it's certainly not sort of necessarily just a subset of the RVH, because of course it involves people across all sites, which is why I'm not hung up on only having site committees where it doesn't make sense in certain respects, because you have issues or concerns or groups of patients that use, multiple sites. But I would love to have it. How to recruit is a really good question. And maybe, we're going to be really increasing our social media presence, and maybe we can use those platforms to a certain extent and our page on the MUHC website to mention what committees exist already, if people want to join, to mention committees that we would like to have exist, and if they want to join, we can help populate those. So we do have to the recruiting is an issue, and you're right, we have to find ways to populate the committees that we want to have. It's not enough to just have the idea to make one.
I think these information days that you have, if you have a booth or a table, we could get some materials printed up saying, interested in helping, patients exercise their rights or whatever. And, I think seeing people face to face is probably the best way to recruit them. I mean, we can try obviously on social media, but all volunteer groups are having challenges recruiting people. It seems these days people are very busy working and with their families, and there's a diminishment in the numbers of volunteers in all areas. So it's not just you guys, it's all of us. So recruitment is critical, and we want to help you any way you can. So if you do have an information day, let us know, and we can think of designing some pamphlets or a sign or something and spread the word that way. But the other groups that attended the information Zoom that we had, what was it, a month ago, Ingrid, a couple of weeks ago?
A little less than a month ago, yeah.
I think that we received some complimentary emails that, people now understood what they had to do and thanking us for the support, etc. So I don't think the other groups are confused. At least that's not my impression, judging from the emails that we had after that Zoom. So.
Although again, with time, you think you're not confused, you think you got everything out of it. And then when you step back, you realize, wait, logistically, like really practically, how does this work or that work? So it's possible that it will be necessary.
An email did come out asking each of us to state, I think it was to Sherry Newdart.
Yeah, Shari, yeah.
Who was on our committee and who was on our committee?
Yeah.
Have other groups done that? Has she received?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and do they look like they've got a working number?
Well,
Except for, I think, the FAF, which I think is down to 4. But you guys do have 2 new members, right? You have Emily and Sita.
They're not
Well,
new. They've been part of our committee from the time I've been on the committee.
Okay,
So-
but they weren't
Well,
included. in the-
Emily's off and on because she's a caregiver. And Sita's always been part of the meetings and everything with us, so.
But see, it's an interesting situation with Sita because she was the representative on the board. And she was also on the FAF. She was asking to be on the medical, what was that called?
Medical mission.
Medical mission. And she was often quite helpful with the RVH meetings. So, but the question comes in, should there be some sort of restriction on the number of committees that people are on? And is that something that needs to be discussed? The other thing, Diane, you kindly, when you saw the list for this gathering, you emailed Siobhan. I see that Sita and Emily are not on the list. Could you send the meeting notice to them? And maybe she did send it.
did.
She said, Sita just responded an hour before it started to say she couldn't attend. Okay.
It's important that we knew that they knew, because it is a question of whether how many committees one person should be on.
Well, I'll tell you that the users committee is never going to dictate how many or how that works. I think it's not for us to decide, but it's for each individual committee to decide who they want to work with them. And if they feel that someone is, spread too thin or doesn't fit for whatever reason, that's an independent decision to be taken by your committee and all the other individual committees. It's definitely not something we're going to dictate, I don't think, Deborah.
And then you might want to be careful because that means losing members, and we don't have big numbers also. There's 2 sides to the coin. I feel, personally speaking, there's 2 sides to the coin. I belong to the RVH, and I also sit at the committee outside the RVH at the CUSM. So does that entitle me to still be part of here, or do I have to give it up because I'm in with them? Like,
it has nothing. I was really Diane talking about MUHC.
Okay.
Well, for instance, in our bylaws, I think if you miss more than 2 meetings a year, you're no longer part of the committee. So if you have a member that's spread too thin and is missing meetings, that's something for you to consider.
Yeah. Mind you, it's missing meetings without valid reason or without giving.
Right.
So, yeah, but really, like I said, those are completely, committee specific questions. Who works well with you? Who has something to offer? I don't, you're not going to get that, like I said, any stipulations from us, but I think it's reasonable to always revisit that if it, what works for you.
I think what we've learned from these committees is it's always best to have harmony amongst your members. So that seems to be a key priority, because we can get so much more work done if everybody gets along and agrees and is on the same page and courteous with each other.
And also not just within the community, the committee, as I mentioned, but also between committees. So you also want people on your committee who work in partnership with other stakeholders. I mean, there's so many criteria, I guess, that help
You could
decide
have,
whether
yeah.
someone is a helpful
Yeah.
or not. But again, each
Your
committee,
call.
your call. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I sort of have to go.
Okay,
Problem.
we can wrap it up if nobody else has any questions.
No, I'm
Yeah,
good. I think.
Yeah.
I only had one
Harvey
question.
has.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Harvey.
So now that I know it's all, this year will be done because we normally meet till May. As looking forward, I think when we resume our 2023-2024 activities beginning in September, I think us at the RBH, we're going to maybe get together and have like priority setting, what areas that we need. But I think we need a crucial actor or key person, notably the ombudsperson. I think he would give us data, but not pertaining to our site, so we could have to set our priority settings just to see what areas we're going to. That's one question. But the other part is that we have Joe as the elected RBH rep on the Montreal MUHC. What role does he play? What role does Joe play with us at the RBH advocacy group, whatever you can call? Because he has to be accountable. I know he does his own personal life, he does whatever, but I mean, he has that responsibility, roles and responsibilities as an elected board, as an elected CUC member to our group. Do you not find?
Yeah, it's structured differently because we're trying to stay out of the, mess that was previously. And so now no user committee, you can be on as many advocacy committees as you like, but you can't be on a users committee and an advocacy committee. So, but he can be invited. You can invite him to every single meeting. You can invite him to parts of meetings. You can invite him or any of us. And that will be, I sort of mentioned it in the meeting, but I think there was just so much information, and it will be in our bylaws. So anytime, if you want to have someone from the users committee attend every single one of your meetings, let us know. If you have someone specific, if you want it to be Joe, who's already on it, that's fine, but he's not a member. He doesn't have voting privileges.
And are your meetings going to be open that we could sit in on them also? Like
So-
not every meeting, but like,
The annual General Assembly, of course, is. In general, we're not imagining that they'll be open. However, anytime you want to, if someone has something to present or someone wants to, an issue to discuss or whatever, you need only ask, and, no reasonable request will be denied, but they're not going to be, wide open, all of them, just because we have to get work done and it's easier in a smaller group.
okay.
You want to say something, or?
Where was I going with that?
I think we're talking about Joe and.
Oh, I think the fact that when we got information about each of the new people that had been chosen to come up for election for the new UC, some facts were given, and some of them indicated an individual was connected by family or something to the FAF or Children's Hospital, I should say. And I think Joe indicated he had been, in terms of his health, connected to the RVH. So that's why that idea is still sort of stuck with us. But I think, Harvey, are you clear now? I asked Harvey as he's trying to have his lunch.
So anybody on the users committee cannot be a member of a site committee, but they can attend all your meetings.
And they do not have any responsibility regarding that particular site, just because their health needs were met there.
No, but I mean, if there's, I mean, no, we don't have affiliations anymore. And actually one of the things, so we introduced ourselves that way partially because the old bylaws required that there be one member who represented this site. And we felt that that did not represent the MUHC community. Why not have someone who represents the deaf community, the indigenous population? So it was arbitrary to take sites that, first of all, some of them are within the same building. It didn't make sense. But it's true that we all have been kind of conditioned to saying I was here and, you know, because I was the RVH member, though our new bylaws will not have any of that.
So is that okay? Do you get that, Harvey? Because he and I have talked about this a couple of times. Harvey? Hi.
You're on mute.
What else? Can you say that again, Jean?
Yeah, were you able to hear that, in fact, Joe has no responsibility to represent the RVH just because he's had some of his health needs met at the RVH?
No, I'm glad. Well, I mean, for transparency, we will have another election next year, and to make sure the ones that are going to be voting, the electorate knows that, because the ones that are going to be voting him, they should know that. And it's just not like today, but because of the bylaws, next year when the new election will begin, the second next one, because it's on they will be voting again, or their mandate. I just want to make in the spirit of transparency. That's just why I asked.
Okay.
I mean, we all have a commitment and we all have a responsibility to all of the sites and all of the groups and all of the missions and all of the issues and all of the concerns. So he's no more responsible, but he's no less responsible.
But if Joe can come to us and say, you know, there's this situation at the RVH that needs addressing, and obviously, you know, we will hear him. So, but he's not responsible for the RVH committee.
Which is why we do encourage all the subcommittees to invite members of the users committee. But don't for a moment think that that is your only channel to communicate with us. It is not. You know, I will take calls, emails from anybody, of course, or, you know, I'm not someone who gets hung up in procedural, whatever, beyond following the law and following things that make sense. But if something is reasonable and you reach out to me, I'm not going to say, tell your chair to come talk to me. That's not ever going to happen. I don't think any of us would ever say that.
So if you guys have any lingering questions, or if questions come to you after the meeting, feel free to contact us and we will answer them. And
Thank you very much for doing this. This has really clarified a lot of things.
It helped us too, so thank you.
Great.
Thank you so much. Enjoy your weekend.
Thanks. You too.
And if you're Greek, happy Easter, Bonnie.
All right.
Thank you. Yes, we come a week later. That's all. We
Yes.
just wait. We get all the Easter things on sale, you know.
Clever. Yeah. All right. Good day, everyone.
Anyways,
Bye,
bye.
everybody.